Do you want me to show the mics and stuff on stage too? Does that matter? Does anyone care? I don't care. Hey guys, my name's Michael. I am Calling House's front of house engineer and production manager and tour manager as well, and diaper changer and babysitter and all those things in between. Just kidding. We're here at Basement East. We're doing 4 shows in a row, starting from Thursday all the way to Sunday. And we had like a whole rehearsal day here on Wednesday, which was cool too. Just wanted to give you a quick rig rundown. A little bit of a weird show for us, so I actually brought in a different desk for out front, but I'll just kind of show you what we usually have. This is the Boys D-Live C1500. It is working with this CDM48 here. And then we also have a DX168 that's down here. Now, usually this would be on stage with him, but because I brought in a different console for out front, everything is hitting a splitter, and splitter hits all those inputs. For today, all this is a ears console essentially, but I do have a front of house mix built on this. So what I do is I take all 56 inputs in and I double patch them. So 1 through 64 is just for out front, and 65 through 128, minus some holes here and there, are for their ears. I have an ears layer here where I have a bunch of DCAs, and I just use this as like spills to hop around in their ears. So if Park wants more stuff in his ears, I click Park Mix, I click the spill on drums, turn drums up or down, so on and so forth. I can also push this up and down, and it like takes all the drums up or down in his mix as a whole. There is a waves card in there so that whenever I am mixing out front, I can use a little bit of wave stuff as well. But as I said today, that's not applicable. For ears, we're using this rack here. It's just 4 channels of PSM 900s, actually 5 channels. We've got a 5th on a Tech Mix here, and then 1 ULXD for Caleb's mic. All of this is hitting a 4-2-in-1 combiner. If you're curious how I get that 5th channel into the combiner, there's just a little BNC Y splitter in there where I just merge 2 antennas into 1. So this guy usually actually sits right in here, but again, because of the weird setup today, I kind of have to put it over to the side. This whole rig is actually flyable, which is super cool. So whenever we go and do fly dates, all of this comes with us. So we can have the same sounds, everyone hears the same things, no matter where we're at in the world. I've taken this all the way to Vienna, Austria before. What's cool about this rig here, this is a custom designed case to where I can actually push this whole stage box out, in and out, without having to re-rack it every time. So whenever we do fly dates, it takes me like 5 minutes or so to get it all out. Usually there's a patch master, which is like a multi-pin connector with a bunch of XLR fan outs that sits right here and then comes up and patches to the back of that. I can kind of show you here, I guess, on the back side of what it looks like. It is a huge mess back there today. But yeah, so you can kind of see the yellow and red and orange XLR. Usually that comes up directly into there, but today I re-racked it over there, and then the splitter is hitting all my inputs in there. For mics on the stage, it's pretty standard stuff, but it's a bunch of random models and companies up there. I've got like a DPA 4055 on the kick out. I've got a 91 on the in, Audix D6 on the floor tom, Sennheiser 604 on the rack, a knee mic. We'll call it a knee mic for lack of a better term today. That is a Bear Dynamic M88, I believe. KSM 137s for overheads, equidistant from the snare. I've got a Rode M5 as a ride underhead and a Rode M5 as a hi-hat. Vocal mics are Audio-Technica 3300s, I believe. A lot of optic gates up there. If you don't know what an optic gate is, it's basically a sensor that turns the mic off when you're a certain distance away from it, and it's fan empowered. Pretty standard DIs up there. Most of it's radial. Track stuff comes directly in over Play Audio. There's a rack panel that goes from XLR to 1/4 inch. 2 computers for playback. So if one dies, it just immediately goes over to the next by using this program called LifeSign. Vocal mic usually is a DPI 2028, but this week we swapped to a 4018B because the 2028 was like crackling out and sounded weird. So that's what we're doing for that. For electric, there are 2 amps on stage. Today we kind of put them off stage because it's such a small room, but we have a SM57 for like an A mic, and then a B mic is a Bear Dynamic M88 on one of the amps, and the other, the B mic, is actually, it's like an Audio-Technica, it's right here, it's an ATM 610A. To be honest with you, I don't really need two different mics on the amp, but we've just had the holes there, and it's just kind of nice to have like a dark and a bright mic to kind of blend together. Both amps have a DI line right before as well that I can kind of blend in. I usually use the DI sound as like a grit vibe, or if I need the song to have like more clarity or something that the amp doesn't have, I just blend that in. Sweet. Outside of that, everyone has a talkback. There's a talkback over here. There's a middle talkback, and Will has a talkback. I have one, LB has one, so we can all communicate in the show. And then everything goes into a split. One goes to this side, the other goes to the SD rack. SD rack goes over B&C to me out front. So let's head out that way. Sweet, so out front we have a Digico SD8. I have been wanting to like build a file for fly date so we don't have to take all of the consoles and stuff that we fly with out. So this is abnormal to have out here. The only reason I wanted it is because I love the pre's, and it's a little easier for me to mix 56 inputs with 3 fader banks instead of 1. So usually I have this many faders, now I have this many. I am running waves on here. I'll go over that in a minute. This is my computer, I'm multi-tracking on here. I'm also using it as like a little MIDI interface. So we're running everything with timecode on the stage. So I take the timecode into my computer and it actually generates MIDI timecode to go into the console. And so if I just emulate here, you'll see that it will automatically switch to silhouettes whenever it gets to that timecode slot here in about 4 seconds. And should do now. There you go. So it automatically switches. So I actually don't have to switch scenes, which is really cool. Other things that are over here that are important besides multi-tracking, I've got this cool DPA 5100, I believe is what it is. That's actually a 6-channel mic all in one, and it comes in, and I'm using that as like my crowd room response type thing for if we do this a post mix or something later on, or socials or whatever. All the records come in and out over MADI. There is a little interface here that I'm using called DADcore, I believe, a DADcore 256. My buddy Tanner Kinney lent me this, and my buddy Michael Reed lent me this for this show. So this is, again, different than what I usually have. As far as how I lay out my console, I like to do what's called a money layer. You see the dollar signs there. This is like the important stuff that I need to access at all times in the show. I usually put my band money stuff on the left, and then I put my vocal money stuff on the right. So I have all my vocal inputs, and then I have my effects as well. And then I've been doing control groups. Everything is snapshotted, faders, pans, some dynamics, like I'm turning the snare gate off and on at certain points, sends to the effects, delay times, things like that. My control groups are not. So what's cool about that is like some days Park is playing quieter or whatever. And so if I turn him up in the song before, it stays up. And so I'll build a vibe for the song, but in the show, I'll typically mix off of this. I also do this thing where I turn the mutes into spills. Now, usually you can, if you're on the screen right here, you can just press this button and it spills the layer. But what I like to do is I like to reassign the mute to do that. So when I click mute on here, it spills all those channels out. That way I don't have to be on that layer. And then other layers, pretty standard stuff. I usually keep all of my inputs somewhere. So if I go to the second layer on here, I can see every single input that we're using on the show for like line check and stuff like that. Then I do a drum layer, band layer, tracks layer. Right side, I do all the vocals, and then I do an effects and a return layer. And I always do a utility layer, which is like the miscellaneous stuff, like time code, talkbacks, and things like that. This is from the venue. It's the complaint box, as you can see. This has all the talkbacks in it so that I can hear what's happening in the show. Again, I am like production managing, so I do need to hear what's happening on stage. All of those talkbacks go over into ProdCom, which I don't currently have pulled up. If you don't know what ProdCom is, it's basically like a transcription app. It takes inputs in and transcribes it to text. So usually it would show up over here. There's a wave support built into the console. It goes into this little Mac Mini that I have racked up in here, little battery backup on here as well. And then it's a Impact server, an old Impact server actually. And I'm just using a little touchscreen. If you didn't know this, the like original version of the Mac Mini, I believe it's like the 2020 M1, for some reason has native touchscreen capabilities. I don't know why it doesn't work on the other ones, but anyways, fun fact. So you see the console over here, got the computer for like a few records and things just in case, like as a backup to that one. I've got the console control set up here, so if I solo out an input, pulls it up over here. And yeah, and as far as what I'm doing over here, it's pretty minimal. I was able to get a lot of what I needed from the desk, which is pretty sick. But I've got just some Sheps 1073, just a little bit of grit and like tone going in and out. And then, you know, a few smack attack. Snare is pretty simple too. It's just like some saturation into that. And then drum bus, API 2500 with Pultec. And then the big thing that I'm relying on waves for is the verbs, because the verbs on the Digico are not my favorite, unfortunately. If we go to my utility layer, you can see I have 6 effects set up. I have a vocal verb, vocal delay, ADT, a drum room, and a drum vibe, and an instrument verb. I also do my tuning from over here. A little bit of a wild tune in this room, but I don't carry a lake, because Tracked kind of does everything that I'd want a lake to do. Unfortunately, if Waves dies, I lose my system tuning, but you know, this is $700 versus like 4,000 or something like that for a lake. And then there's like a little bit of a mix bus too. I'm going into 2500 Vitamin, Abbey Road's mastering chain. For ears, the show gets quite loud sometimes, so just to keep my ears protected, I quite often will throw my in-ears in. I'm using 6418S's. I demoed the S's and the T's, and I went from another company that I won't say, but I loved them. Like, it was night and day better than the other pair that I was using. So I've been on these, I swear by them. The seal's amazing. I can turn the volume almost all the way down and still hear what the mix is doing, which is great. Other weird things I like to do on the console, I have a button here that automatically takes out my left-right out of my matrices. And then I do this thing called a left-right bypass, to where all of like my music and pink noise and stuff like that goes directly to the matrices. So that way, in sound check and line check and all that stuff, I just take my left-right out of the matrix, I have it up, and I don't have to keep going back to solo it to hear what it's doing, or you know, whatever. Just a silly little thing I like to do. I also don't want like any kind of tonal adjustments or like EQ or compression that I'm doing across the whole mix to affect my pink noise and affect my pre-show music. So that way I can have like a good reference to A/B between my mix and whatever I'm playing. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.